The air inside the Wembley Stadium in London on July 16, 1988, was charged with anticipation. 20,000 fans have been waiting for this moment, some for hours, some for days, all of them yearning for a glimpse of the man they had come to worship. The Bad World Tour was already being hailed as the concert event of the decade, with Michael's performances reaching new heights of theatrical brilliance and musical perfection. As the crowd swelled against the barriers, their collective breath formed clouds in the cool British summer evening. The stage lay in darkness, a temple of technology waiting to be awakened by its high priest. The silence before the storm was absolute, punctuated only by the occasional whisper, the rustling of tour programs, the soft click of cameras being readied. And then, as the first synthesizer notes of "Wanna Be Startin' Something" began to pulse through the massive speakers, the darkness exploded into a kaleidoscope of lights, and 20,000 voices became one deafening roar. Michael Jackson had arrived. By the third song, "Another Part of Me," Michael had the audience in the palm of his hand. His movements were liquid electricity, each gesture precise, yet seemingly effortless, each note hit with supernatural perfection. The choreography with his dancers was flawless, a testament to the hundreds of hours of rehearsal that preceded each show. Fans pressed against the stage barriers, arms outstretched, tears streaming down their faces, while security guards maintained vigilant watch. It was during this electric atmosphere that something unexpected happened, something that would forever change the lives of everyone present that night. In the front row, near the left side of the stage, a commotion began to form. Security personnel rushed forward, their faces tense with concern. A woman was frantically waving her arms, pointing to a small figure beside her. Even as Michael continued to perform, his peripheral vision caught the disturbance. Without missing a beat, he signaled to his dancers to continue the routine while he moved closer to the edge of the stage. What he saw made him freeze mid-performance. A small boy, no more than 8 years old, was slumped against his mother, his face pale and drawn, his breathing labored. Even from the stage, Michael could see the child's oxygen tank, the medical bracelet on his thin wrist, the exhaustion in his eyes. But there was something else there too, a desperate joy, the fulfillment of a wish that had sustained him through countless hospital visits and painful treatments. The boy had come to see his idol, perhaps for the first and last time. Without hesitation, Michael raised his hand. The music faded, the dancers stopped, and a curious murmur rippled through the crowd. In the sudden silence, Michael's voice rang clear through the microphone. "Hold on, everyone. We need to pause for a moment." The audience watched in confusion as Michael gestured urgently to his stage manager and security team. Words were exchanged, heads nodded, and within moments, security personnel were gently helping the woman and her son through a side entrance near the stage. The crowd waited, unsure of what was happening. Minutes passed, and the atmosphere in the stadium shifted from excitement to concern. Some fans began to speculate loudly, their voices carrying across the now-quiet arena. Others stood in respectful silence, trusting that whatever had caused their idol to stop the show must be important. The band members exchanged glances, adjusting their instruments, ready to resume at a moment's notice. The dancers took the opportunity to hydrate, their costumes glistening under the stage lights. 10 minutes later, Michael returned to the stage, but he wasn't alone. Holding his hand was the small boy from the front row, now wearing a child-sized version of Michael's iconic fedora and a single, sparkling glove that engulfed his tiny hand. The boy's mother followed a few steps behind, her face a portrait of disbelief and gratitude. The crowd gasped collectively, then erupted into applause so thunderous it seemed to shake the very foundations of Wembley Stadium. Michael gently guided the boy to center stage and adjusted the microphone to his height. "Everyone," he said, his voice soft yet carrying to every corner of the vast arena, "I want you to meet my friend Jamie. Jamie has been fighting leukemia for 3 years, and his doctors didn't think he would be strong enough to come tonight. But Jamie proved them wrong, didn't you, buddy?" The boy nodded shyly, his eyes wide with wonder as he looked out at the sea of faces. Jamie told me backstage that his favorite song is Man in the Mirror, Michael continued, and he said it helps him when he's scared or in pain. So tonight, I'd like to dedicate this song to Jamie and to all the brave children like him who teach us what true courage really means. The opening notes of the song began to play, and Michael knelt down to Jamie's eye level. "Would you like to stay here with me while I sing it?" he asked. Jamie nodded, his face lighting up with a smile that belied his physical condition. What happened next was something no one in attendance would ever forget. As Michael began to sing, his voice took on a new quality, a depth of emotion that transcended even his usual passionate performances. He held Jamie's hand throughout the song, occasionally twirling the delighted child in a gentle dance move that respected his fragile state. When they reached the chorus, Michael lifted Jamie carefully onto his shoulders, allowing him to see the entire stadium, to feel, if only for a moment, what it was like to be adored by thousands. If this story moves you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel to hear more untold stories about Michael Jackson's extraordinary life and the countless lives he touched with his kindness and generosity. The audience watched in stunned silence, many openly weeping at the tender scene unfolding before them. Hardened security guards discreetly wiped away tears. Photographers lowered their cameras, choosing to experience the moment rather than capture it. Parents hugged their children closer, imagining the anguish of Jamie's mother and finding hope in Michael's compassionate gesture. When the song ended, the applause that followed wasn't the usual frenetic screaming that accompanied Michael's performances. It was a deep, reverent ovation, punctuated by sniffles and whispered expressions of awe. But Michael wasn't finished. He whispered something to his stage manager, who disappeared backstage and returned moments later with a small object wrapped in tissue paper. Michael took it and once again knelt before Jamie. "This is something very special to me," he said, unwrapping the package to reveal a small crystal figurine of a child reaching for a star. "My mother gave this to me when I was just starting out with my brothers, and it reminds me that no dream is too big, no star too distant to reach for. I want you to have it now, Jamie, because you're reaching for stars every day with your courage." Jamie's mother broke down completely at this point, her sobs audible even without a microphone. She tried to speak, to thank Michael, but words failed her. Michael embraced her gently, whispering something that only she could hear, something that made her nod through her tears and stand a little straighter afterward. The stadium had fallen so quiet that the sound of a dropped program could be heard several rows back. After escorting Jamie and his mother backstage, where they would watch the remainder of the concert from a comfortable VIP area with medical staff standing by, Michael returned to continue the show. But something had changed. The connection between performer and audience had deepened into something almost spiritual. Every song that followed seemed imbued with new meaning. Every dance moved a celebration of life and its fragility. The energy in Wembley Stadium that night transcended entertainment. It was a communion, a shared experience of humanity at its most vulnerable and beautiful. Years later, those who were there would recall that night, not just as another spectacular Michael Jackson concert, but as a moment when 20,000 strangers became a family, united by compassion and the remarkable courage of a small boy and the superstar who stopped everything to honor him. Journalists who attempted to interview audience members afterward found many too emotional to speak coherently. "You had to be there," became the common refrain. "You had to feel it to understand." What many didn't know was that after the concert, Michael arranged for Jamie and his mother to be taken to their hotel in his personal limousine. He had his team gather the contact information for Jamie's doctors and, without publicity or fanfare, ensured that all of the boy's medical expenses would be covered going forward. But his generosity didn't stop there. Learning that Jamie's greatest wish besides meeting Michael was to visit Disneyland, Michael arranged for a fully paid family trip to the theme park once Jamie was strong enough to travel, complete with VIP access and accommodations at the exclusive Disneyland Hotel. The story might have remained private, known only to those directly involved, had Jamie's mother not shared it with a local newspaper 6 months later, after Jamie had completed a promising new treatment that Michael had helped him access through his connections with top medical specialists. "Michael didn't just give my son a magical night," she told the reporter, her voice still trembling with emotion at the memory. "He gave him hope, a reason to keep fighting. And that has made all the difference." The medical team treating Jamie noticed a remarkable change in the boy after the concert. His will to fight seemed stronger, his spirit more resilient. The crystal figurine remained at his bedside through every treatment, every procedure, a tangible reminder of the night when a global superstar had seen him, truly seen him, and found him worthy of extraordinary kindness. When asked about his improved outlook, Jamie would simply point to the figurine and say, "I'm reaching for stars, just like Michael told me to." The impact of that night extended far beyond Jamie and his family. Following the publication of a newspaper article, the hospital where Jamie received treatment saw an unprecedented increase in donations and volunteers. Michael, true to form, contributed anonymously to the hospital's pediatric oncology wing, which would later be renovated and expanded to help more children like Jamie. He stayed in touch with the family through his staff, sending personalized gifts and messages of encouragement during particularly difficult periods in Jamie's treatment. Perhaps the most remarkable aspect of the story was the effect it had on those who witnessed it firsthand. Mark Reynolds, one of the security guards working near the stage that night, would later credit the experience with changing the course of his life. "Watching Mr. Jackson with that kid made me realize I was in the wrong career," he told a colleague years later. "I wanted to help people, not just stand around looking tough." Reynolds eventually left security work to become a paramedic, inspired by the medical staff who had accompanied Jamie to the concert. Similar stories emerged from others present that night. A young production assistant was so moved by Michael's compassion that she founded a nonprofit organization dedicated to fulfilling the wishes of critically ill children. A teenage fan in the audience, herself struggling with depression, found new purpose after witnessing Jamie's courage and Michael's kindness, eventually becoming a child psychologist specializing in helping young people with chronic illnesses. The ripple effects continue to spread, touching lives that neither Michael nor Jamie could have imagined. 3 years after that fateful night at Wembley, Michael was performing in Los Angeles when he spotted a familiar face in the VIP section. Jamie, now 11 and in remission, was watching the show with his mother. Thinner than most boys his age, but with bright eyes full of life, he still wore the fedora Michael had given him, though it now fit perfectly. During Man in the Mirror, Michael made his way to where Jamie was sitting and extended his hand. The boy took it without hesitation, and together they sang the chorus, 20,000 voices joining them in perfect harmony. The crystal figurine that Michael had given Jamie became something of a legend among fans, who created replicas to exchange at conventions and gatherings. But none matched the original, which Jamie guarded zealously, allowing it to be displayed only once at a charity auction raising funds for pediatric cancer research. The figurine itself wasn't for sale. It was there to inspire others to give generously, a symbol of how a simple act of kindness could change a life. The auction raised over $2 million that night, enough to fund a promising new research initiative. When asked in later interviews about his most memorable fan encounters, Michael would often grow quiet, a distant look crossing his face. "There have been so many beautiful moments," he would say, "but some are too sacred to share." Those who had been at Wembley that night would nod in understanding, knowing they had witnessed one of those sacred moments, a perfect alignment of compassion, courage, and the healing power of music. The relationship between Michael and Jamie continued over the years, evolving as Jamie grew from a sick child into a healthy teenager with dreams of his own. Inspired by the medical professionals who had saved his life and by Michael's example of using his talents to bring joy to others, Jamie pursued a career in music therapy, eventually working with children facing the same challenges he had overcome. In his therapy sessions, he often used Michael's songs, finding that they resonated with young patients in profound ways. On the 10th anniversary of the Wembley concert, Jamie, now a young man of 18, was invited to a special event honoring Michael's humanitarian work. As he stood at the podium, the crystal figurine in his hand catching the light, he spoke without notes, his voice strong and clear. 10 years ago, I was dying, he said simply. My body was failing, and my spirit wasn't far behind. Then Michael Jackson looked out from a stage and saw a sick kid who needed more than medicine. He saw someone who needed magic. And he gave it to me, not just for one night, but for a lifetime. The audience at the Humanitarian Awards ceremony fell silent, many of them hearing Jamie's story for the first time. People often ask me what Michael whispered to my mother that night, Jamie continued. I think it's time to share that. He told her, your son has given me far more than I could ever give him. He's reminded me why I make music in the first place, to touch hearts, to heal souls, to make this world a little less cold and a little more kind. That's the Michael I knew, not just an entertainer, but a healer. The crystal figurine now sits in a glass case in Jamie's office, where he sees young patients struggling with their own battles against illness. Sometimes, when a child seems particularly discouraged, Jamie will take out the figurine and share his story. This was given to me by someone who believed I could reach the stars, he tells them. And now I'm telling you the same thing. The stars are waiting. You just have to be brave enough to reach for them. Throughout his career, Michael would recreate this kind of magic countless times, in ways both public and private. There were the hospital visits conducted without press, the financial assistance provided anonymously to families in need, the foundations established to support causes close to his heart. But for the 20,000 people who were at Wembley Stadium on that July night in 1988, there will always be something special about the moment when the king of pop stopped the world to honor the courage of one small boy. As the years passed and memories of that night began to fade, certain details remained crystal clear in the minds of those who were there. The way Michael's voice broke slightly as he introduced Jamie to the crowd, the gentleness with which he handled the fragile child, the look of pure joy on Jamie's face as he experienced his dream coming true. These moments, captured not on film, but in the hearts of witnesses, became part of the complex tapestry that was Michael Jackson's legacy. Not just his unparalleled talent, but his extraordinary capacity for compassion. If you've been touched by this story, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. By doing so, you help us continue sharing these powerful, intimate glimpses into the life of a man who is so much more than his music, a man whose kindness and generosity changed countless lives in ways both dramatic and subtle. Today, the crystal figurine that once belonged to Michael Jackson's mother, then to Michael himself, and finally to a brave little boy named Jamie, rests in a special display at the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles. It sits in a custom-built case with perfect lighting, surrounded by photographs telling the story of that remarkable night at Wembley Stadium. Below it, a simple plaque bears the words that have become a mantra for the young patients who pass by it daily. Reach for the stars. They're not as far as they seem. Each day, small hands press against the glass, small faces reflect in its surface, and small hearts find the courage to keep fighting. Inspired by a child who once stood in the spotlight with Michael Jackson and showed the world what true bravery looks like.